What up, everybody? Michael here with FlyZone Drone. Welcome to another Sunday night live stream, strictly Fpv QuadCast. This is the first stream of the new year, 2023. Today, we have a wonderful guest joining us, very knowledgeable CEO of Dave Messina from FPV Freedom Coalition. If you guys have any questions for him, he's the man to go to answer all your questions. And we have great friend of mine, two great friend of mine, and they're both also founders of the Quad Mafia team, Quad Mafia group. So we're going to bring them in a little bit, but let's see who's in the chats real quick. Let me say hello. We got Jonathan Jackson. What's up, fam? We got Matt Bagwell, Max Air 420 in the house. I think Max is on his way to Canada, I believe, or he's on his way to, maybe tomorrow he leaves, but I think it was today or tomorrow. But we got Bob Casey. Good to see Bob Casey in the chat. We have Kenny, place it here, and that's all for now. But Andrew as well is in here. Welcome in. Always good to see you guys. Thanks for all your love and support. So without further ado, let's bring in first my good friend Chris, Doc Murdoch FPV. Here we go.
We are here.
What's up, Doc?
We got the goods.
Yeah, we got the goods tonight. We definitely got the goods. We got the smack tonight.
That's it, man. Got the dirt, the lowdown.
All right, let's bring in Sammy before he starts taking his clothes off.
So we don't want him doing that in the green room.
Yes, I hear what you guys are saying. I don't like it.
Yeah. Sergio will be a little late, guys. He had to do some errands for the baby, so it's totally understandable. So, what's new, guys? What's new, Sammy? Doc, what you guys been doing, man?
Work.
Yeah.
On the house. It's getting there. The whole front of the house is almost done now. I get to start on the bathroom finally. So I had to get the roof on before I could do that.
Right.
So that starts tomorrow. So
I am just waiting for the rain to quit.
Oh yeah, you guys are getting a lot of
rain.
it.
We're getting hammered, dude. I know that people that live in areas where there's like tornadoes and hurricanes and crap, but for California, this rain is killing us.
I heard, man. There was some.
It snowed on me today a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Just a little.
Here's so far. Here's been great. I'm shocked.
We're just under high wind warnings right now. So
yeah.
We had tornado warnings yesterday, believe it or not, California.
Right.
Yeah, we got wind gusts up to 43. So yeah. Perfect flying weather for FPV.
It sure is. It sure is.
Makes as long as you don't land in the grass.
Well, no, it just makes for going one way real slow, and the other way you get to really punch it.
Yep, yeah. It sure is.
Well, see, then you only show top speed going with the wind, right?
That's right.
Not against the wind.
That's right.
So yeah,
only 99.99999 miles per hour, though. Right.
So everyone in the chats, all the viewers. So for those of you who don't know, Sammy, Doc Murdoch. Itchy. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. Not Sammy. It's Itchy Sack. Itchy Sack. Ladies and gentlemen, Itchy Sack. Doc Murdoch, Maddie, Strong World Maddie, Sergio, and I, we're the founding fathers of Quad Mafia.
Yep.
We're the ones that originated it. So, more news on that. I got to share something for the meetup, too, for the Quad Mafia FPV Palooza 2023. We'll play that a little bit later. We have some updates. This is update number 3. I want you guys to really see, and I think this will be perfect for the show because we have Dave here, and maybe Dave or anybody in here has an answer to this. It's about the meetup. So it's a few issues we're going through. Yep. So I'll show that in a little bit throughout the show. So without further ado, Dave's here. Let's bring in the CEO of FPV Freedom Coalition. Davey! Yay! Good to see you, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I tell you what, after you and Josh Bixler were on with Joshua Bardwell, it was like, holy smokes, yeah, we need to talk to you directly. So
absolutely.
Well, thanks for the invite. That was a good discussion, and we've been working with Josh Pixler and the flight test guys for over a year now, and it's a nice complementary relationship. And their 2.2 million reach into fixed wing RC, and also expanding into quads and FPV, and our focus has been primarily on regulations with the FAA, as well as education, and now the CBO work.
Yeah. It was just interesting when you came on and you guys mentioned that, the FAA had just barely, approved all of you guys, including the AMA.
Yeah.
I mean, that blew me away. That
only took 4 years.
It just took so long.
Yeah, we formed the FPV Freedom Coalition because we felt that the AMA was not really addressing FPV or UAS, unmanned aerial systems. At the headquarters, they do. Down at the grassroots and the individual clubs, it's a little difficult. So we thought there was a need. There has been, and we've been really active in a lot of regulation work for the last 4 years. And finally the FAA comes out with Advisory Circular 9157C that describes the CBO.
Now I have one quick question. Does the remote ID apply to wings as well?
Absolutely. Any aircraft that is remotely controlled is a UAV, and it is applicable. So not a kite, not a chuck glider, but if it's over 200, and remote ID pertains to the registration. So if you have to register it, you have to use remote ID. So if you say, well, I'm flying under 250 grams, well, that's good if you're flying recreationally. If you're flying Part 107 commercial, you got to use remote ID.
That's right.
And it's also important to distinguish between standard remote ID and broadcast module remote ID. And so the FAA has a strong push to that. They want everyone to go standard remote ID, and that's going to be a bit difficult. It's borderline for some instances that it's unreasonable. But
it's not going to be practical at all, especially for FPV style.
Well, look at the Avata is integrated, so that's a standard remote ID, and so then it's a matter of how small can the device be on the aircraft, and then we have to simply get the GPS coordinates from the ground control station or the transmitter, the pilot, up to the aircraft. So it's technically doable, but it's a hassle for the pilot.
Now, for the FPV guys, would you have to put a GPS module on your quad, say it's a home built, or would the remote ID module have the GPS built in?
The latter. Well, almost all of the broadcast modules have they're essentially a GPS, a Bluetooth transmitter, and a logic module. And so that's all together. And there are a number of companies around that are working on those. And as you heard Josh Pixler say, Flight Test is working on a solution.
Well, I got a chance to speak with, through email, through the company Blue Mark, and he had come out with a module, but it definitely was not designed for FPV, and he was kind of unaware of what the requirements were size-wise to even put one in, and he asked me to give him a whole bunch of information, so I sent him a pretty lengthy email, and he emailed me back after the holidays and said that keep an eye out. He's got something coming, because his original module that did not have the GPS built into it was just a little too big, not by much, but it was a little too long. And the way it sounded was he was able to redesign where everything goes to fit it at least into a 30 by 30 is what I'm understanding. So we'll see.
So if you think about it, who's using a lot of GPS today in either FPV or in fixed wing or whatever, and so RD pilot folks who are flying semi-autonomous, they're going to have GPS.
iNav, yep.
iNav, pick. So if you look at Drone Tag, they've got a capability with remote ID that does not have a GPS located or on the module, because it anticipates the GPS signal coming from the aircraft. It's a little tricky because it has to be, quote, tamper resistant, and that's That is a non-industry term, and it was intentionally loose. One of the things that we're involved in is I'm a member of the ASTM, the Working Group for Remote ID. So I was a small part of the group of the 138 people who wrote the means of compliance, which defines the spec for remote ID. So, this is one way to accomplish it. So there are a number of solutions, and so price is one, and the other thing to keep aware of in a broadcast module, if you're flying recreationally, you can move that module from aircraft to aircraft, no problem, because you're registering yourself, not the aircraft. With a commercial or Part 107, you're supposed to have a 1-for-1 module or a standard remote ID serial for each of the aircraft. Or if it's manufactured before September 16, 2022, you can put a broadcast module on it, but you're supposed to line it up 1-to-1. Yes, you can move it, but you have to unregister and then re-register on another aircraft.
Do you think that's going to be possible that we can get the FAA to not so much backpedal, but make allowances for that? Because for the commercial guys, if they're out doing major shoots and they have one go down and they need to bring in a backup aircraft that doesn't have the module, or they break the module and need to replace it, it's going to be just a major pain on, in the middle of a shoot. They're not going to be able to do that.
Agreed. And so if you're talking about a production shoot where you've got tens of thousands of dollars of aircraft, sitting around or in the air, $150 module is not going to be a big difference. So a small
business. Well, no, it was more of the point of
I'm going to get two.
Yeah, it was more of the point of having to reconnect that module's serial number to the aircraft serial number.
Right, and it's just a matter of signing on to Drone Zone, register, unregister. So it's a pain, but and I think the FAA would say it's not that hard, because it is a matter of register and unregister.
So to go back to what you said about that module, would that module have to be a pass-through module, where they assume that you already have GPS on your aircraft, and then you would plug into that module, and then that module would plug into the flight controller, right?
Potentially. I was with you right up until you said flight controller. You have to be careful when you're talking to a flight controller, because if it's an open source piece of code, you can't go directly into that. You have to have some workaround, because open source is construed as being not tamper resistant. Again, tamper resistant, a loose non-industry term. So I
think what Sammy was saying is, because we've got the GPS modules on the back of the quad.
Yep.
The signal comes from the module, goes into the remote ID module, and then the remote ID, samples that information for what it needs to do, and then just continues passing on the GPS information straight to the flight controller, so the flight controller can do what it needs to do with that GPS information.
Yes, if you're using iNav or ArduPilot, yes,
right.
An emphatic, yes, you need one or a serial signal of the GPS, and then obviously you also need a telemetry signal from the ground control station up to the aircraft to integrate the ground location with the signal. We're talking standard remote ID only.
That's standard, yeah.
Recreational or broadcast module, it just incorporates the takeoff location, and you don't need a real-time signal integrated.
So how do you believe at the moment, do you see them being able to make all the FPV aircraft standard remote ID? Or is that really even practical at this point?
I think over time it is absolutely practical. And so there's going to be a series of integrations. Connecting a phone, as DJI has done with Avata, while it sounds really kludgy, it makes a ton of sense because of one of the requirements in the rule, which is the vertical accuracy requirement. The vertical location accuracy of the GCS is 15 feet. And stop me or shut me up if I'm using too many abbreviations or acronyms.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you're good.
So that's the real reason why the DJI is using a phone, because if you're using a WABAS enabled phone, you've got the accuracy that's approved by the FAA, and you don't have to go through a long testing of your own on the GPS. that has the tightest vertical accuracy requirement of any vehicle in the world.
Yeah, no kidding there.
Airliners have a vertical accuracy requirement of 150 feet. UAS ground control stations have a vertical accuracy requirement of 15 feet. And we know that comes. We know it comes from DHS because they want to know what floor in a building that we're on when we're flying a drone.
Right.
Right, but from what I understand with the Avata, as long as you're hooked up to your phone, you can arm it. Then you can take your phone and throw it away. It's going to be fine after that. You can fly, come back, come back, as long as you have the phone hooked up the first time that you arm the quad.
So so if you, Ken Heron has done an adorable video on this, and so if you look at the screens that Ken is showing on the Avata, it says remote ID now now disconnected, or there's something that gives you a warning. And
it puts a little red bar up that says that it's disconnected.
But like with the
if you're complying, if you want to comply with the rule, then you would have to land as soon as practicable and reconnect the phone. So can the Avata aircraft do exactly what you said? Yep. No, that's no issues. Are you then complying with the rule to the letter of the law? No.
No,
that's right.
So I hear you, and this is frustrating. I'm not an advocate of remote ID. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for both recreational as well as Part 107. We're trying to sort out the rules, and we're also working day to day with the FAA on regulations to make life a little easier.
So,
go ahead, Mikey.
So Andrew's asking, are there any modules on sale yet?
Yes, there are.
Right, that's what I was going to ask. Is there modules that will work on our FPV quads?
Yes, there are. They're
not quite small enough.
Some are pretty small. Take a look at Drone Tag, and there'll be others as well.
Okay.
Hey, Eddie.
So Drone Tag is in the under 20 grams, so 28.3 grams to an ounce. It's, a little more than half an ounce.
Okay. So let's talk about CBOs, Dave. Tell everyone what a CBO is.
So there are two things that are interesting about a community-based organization. So it's an FAA-recognized capability, and there are a whole series of things that you have to comply with in order to just be able to be considered to be a CBO. One is you have to be a 501c3. So you have to be a not-for-profit organization. It also, if you're a 501c3, interestingly, you cannot spend more than a small percentage of your revenue lobbying Congress. So an interesting byproduct that when we formed, we're like, this is interesting. So we can't lobby. You have to have a set of safety guidelines that people have to point to you and say, okay, I'm going to fly using this set of safety guidelines. The important thing is you do not have to be a member of any CBO to point to that CBO to use the safety guidelines. But the FAA stipulates that you have to use one of the three now. There may be more. Right now, there are three out there. There's
only three,
Flight Test Community Association, the AMA, and us. And so, again, you do not have to be a member, but you have to look through the guidelines and go, yeah, that makes sense. So I'll go with that one. And then you have to, when you're flying, on our FPV Freedom Coalition site, the web page has the things that you need to do to fly recreationally. But back to being a CBO, the benefit of being a CBO, once you get through all of these requirements, and some of them are you have to provide education and the furtherance of aero modeling to the community. The key parts to us are FRIA applications have to go through a CBO, 1. 2, the FAA has stated that regulations pertaining to recreational UAS, they will ensure that they ask the CBO as a requirement stakeholder. And so that's something we've been doing for the last 4 years. This is a formalization of that, and that's great.
Okay, now that brings up a really good question, because Joshua Bardwell mentioned he applied for a FRIA for his area to fly. That sparked a really good question for me.
We did that for him. So
you did, okay.
Right.
That's what I was going to ask, because I called the FAA Friday and I asked them directly about that, because according to their website, anybody can apply. But when he said that, he also stated that the FAA is going to lean very heavily to the ones that are working through a CBO for that application, as opposed to just an individual. So if it's just an individual applying, they're pretty much going to deny it.
Well, so in other words, you have to, if you want a FRIA, you have to have a CBO as like a sponsor, which they're assuming.
That's essentially what he told me over the phone.
The way that it's written and the way that it's been explained to us numerous times and in writing is that the application for a FRIA must go through a CBO. So even more than a sponsor or a pass-through. And this is one of the things we're trying to understand. Now, if you guys all got onto Drone Zone right now and said, well, I'm going to see if I can apply to make my backyard a FRIA, the system will accept the application. All of the information will flow through and you can do it. We have explained this to the FAA and they said, no, you're mistaken. You're confusing a fixed site with a FRIA. And we said, no, we're not mistaken.
Nope.
Please check again. And so it took us 2.5 weeks to get them to agree, we think there might be a problem.
Yep.
So we're working to set up a call with a number of folks from the FAA, and we have rather deep IT skills in addition to business and technical skills. So our objective is not to whine or complain about this topic. There are lots of other things we can complain about. We want to be productive and get the FRIA process going very quickly. Because if you think about the timing, FRIAs have to be in place before September 2023. They have a nominal, it's not a hard rule, but it's a nominal service level agreement of 90-day turnaround. Notice that that's the first pass. So with the FAA, if you submit a FRIA application, they could say in 90 days, yep, we've received it. And they have satisfied
as far as it goes.
and they have satisfied their 90-day service level agreement. So we want to get, so with if you back up 90 days, that's June. So we got to get cracking and get the process into place. And that's one of the things we're pressing right now. Itchy. You seem itchy.
What I'm trying to figure out is if I have to have the approval of the CBO to do a FRIA, does the CBO, if they grant me the FRIA, are they accepting responsibility for what I do?
No, it has to be. It's got to be a pass through. We really cannot have a situation of liability. Now, this is a completely gray zone from a perspective of enforcement or follow up or education. So we know that the intent of the FAA is to have the CBO involved to some extent, but it's really not clear at this point.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they granted me the FRIA, if they would be responsible at all for what I do, because they're the ones signing off on my FRIA.
So did I not answer the question the first time?
Yeah,
I think Sam's got it almost. Essentially, if I wanted to do a FRIA, like I have 5 acres down here in southern New Mexico, right? And I have permission to fly on it. It's my property. I could approach you at the FPV Freedom Coalition and go, this is where I want to set the FRIA up.
Yep.
And then we would work it out with you. And then the question then is, do you submit the application or do we submit the application?
It's my understanding that we, the CBO, submit the application.
Okay, so that clears that up.
Yeah, so what I was getting at is because you're authorizing his FRIA, then who's responsible for what he does? I guess he would be, right?
So Itchy, you must be a New Yorker. I'm from New York, so you didn't like the
California. They got crazy rules.
It's worse.
How could this be? So you didn't like the answer, so you've asked it 2 additional times to see if I would change the answer.
No, I just want to know if we have to go through you to get authorization and you say, okay, go. It's like if I say, hey, I want to drive your car, right? And I go out and crash your car. Is it your responsibility because I crashed it?
If you were an attorney and we were talking about indemnification, this is the point that we would be on, because you would bring up the point of, well, is there an explicit or implied agreement in contract here, in as much as we have been a broker for this agreement, and this is a completely ill-defined area, and so you've got 5 guys in FPVFC. 4 of them are still working and do this part-time. I do this full-time. I'm, or as I say, all volunteer, not paid. Yeah. So do you want to press the FAA to say that the CBOs should be liable for any infractions?
No, 100% the opposite. I'm just saying, if you're not going to be liable, why can't you just grant FRIAs to everybody?
Well, we could, but that would be inane.
Yeah, true.
So we're trying to apply common sense and a little bit of intelligence. And so if someone says I'd like to apply to be a FRIA, and my address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington D.C. We would say probably not.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Right.
But if you live out in the middle of Wyoming somewhere, that's a different story.
Exactly. There's also a stipulation that worries us in Advisory Circular 9157C, which is that proximity to one FRIA versus another will be a consideration on the FAA's approval. That really disturbs us and worries us because we don't get it. Why would you not want a proliferation of FRIAs? Because, as I said earlier, we're trying to allow people to fly tomorrow just as they flew yesterday. So if I fly with my kids at a church yard, at a school yard, at a park, why can't we make that a FRIA if we can get agreement from the owners of the property that can be a FRIA?
Yeah, I hear you.
Because that, as far as I understand it, the way the guy that I spoke to on the FAA, that was something he made a very good point of, that whoever is applying for the FRIA has to have the explicit permission.
That's exactly
to be able to use that area.
You have to have the authority to say that yes, I have the and this could take some time, because I have 5 acres in upstate New York. I'm going to apply for my property to be a FRIA. Well, I have explicit rights to use that property. Great.
Correct.
So that's an easy checkbox. But if it's a town park, do you have
a little different?
What's the approval that you have? And so if someone says, oh yeah, the guy said it was okay, I don't think so.
No, see, for something like that, you would have to have it in absolute writing on either city, county, state letterhead, with the person that's actual point of contact.
Exactly.
So
now, what would the restrictions be if, say, you had your 5-acre FRIA on your private property, and I come to fly on your property? Is there any restrictions because it's already a FRIA?
Yeah, you have to state, so all of the other UAS regulations and rules apply. You're just flying without remote ID. So, and you need to stipulate which, if you're flying recreationally, you have to say, well, I'm going to use this CBO's safety guidelines. And it does not necessarily have to be consistent with the FRIA you're going to fly at. That can make your head explode, but and because there will be some differences, and it's we're on edge cases right now. So if you're flying turbines and the CBO that you cite does not have turbines and jets in their safety guidelines, then why did you pick? So it gets those are as we say, edge cases or tail conditions that they're important, but we're going to try to solve for the main getting started.
Something that I'd mentioned to everybody, that we've talked to in the last couple of weeks about all of this was, when we found out that all of you guys finally got approved, we told everybody, look, go and download their PDF safety guidelines and load them in your phone, have them with you. So that way, whatever you're going to do, and somebody asks, you just say, hold on.
Right. So if you
I'm
want
working on that one.
if you want to comply with the rules, safety guidelines on your phone, I've taken trust. I have the it's free. It takes 10 minutes for those of us, it's really, you cannot fail it. And you've registered yourself as a recreational pilot, and you're carrying your FAA registration. And yes, you're supposed to register you're supposed to identify or mark your UAS. Let's see. Did I do that? Oh, not yet. Uh-oh.
Mine keeps falling off.
I better get that marker on mine.
And that's no joke. I actually did. I stuck it on one of mine, and it only took like one flight, and it was off the thing, and there's nothing I could do about it.
Honest, officer, I had a license plate on this car earlier today.
That fell off.
You can see where the sticker mark is, where the stickum still's there.
I just have one more liability question. If I know, I'm just trying to find out who's.
Hey, Dave, you got to bear in mind he's in California, right?
Right. So, if I come fly at your field, your FRIA, and I've told you I'm flying recreational, but yet then I turn around and post my videos on YouTube, would that be commercial, or you know what I mean?
I do.
Because when you put them on YouTube and you're monetized, you can make money on them. So that should be a Part 107. But I wasn't part of 107, but I lied to you. But that's going to fall on me, right? You're not going to be held for that?
That has nothing to do with the CBO.
Right.
And so this feels itchy, like a test question to see if I know the regs.
I'm just asking.
Okay. I'm good with the test. I mean, tests are good. It's all about intent. And Greg Griffin does a fantastic job of answering this question in excruciating detail. And so if your intent and when you're flying was to fly recreationally, and you take video and then you post it, great. That's no need for a Part 107. If, on the other hand, your YouTube is a monetized site and you're using those videos for the furtherance of business, then it's a Part 107. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yep. I agree 100%.
I think where the gray area is that most of us kind of draw a question on that particular scenario is if you're not monetized, but yet YouTube puts an ad on your channel without your knowledge. And that's an issue that's kind of a gray area. And, nobody knows the honest answer to it at this point.
But on YouTube, you can decide if you want ads on your channel. You can shut
when you're not monetized,
you can't.
You don't have that ability to tell them yes or no.
Oh,
but
really?
Some of the channels that aren't monetized, they are having ads. You either pre or post. They won't. Really? They're not putting them in the middle, but they're popping up at the front or the back of a video.
So I think you're on a really, really good point, Doc, from perspective of advising people who we all work with. If you look at what those of us who are involved in this every day, day in and day out, our suggestion is get your 107. Just
and that just covers you.
Yeah, and because you're also more knowledgeable, because the test forces you to learn a fair amount about the regs, and that's not a bad thing. Again, I'm not an advocate of more regulation. I am an advocate of staying out of trouble.
Yep. Hey, now, Dave, so that kind of leads us to the next piece that the FAA gives us, and that's the fixed sites. Now, that's a whole different critter compared to the FRIAs. Okay.
Yes, it is.
So when I talked to the FAA guy on Friday, I asked him about that, because I says, where is the spot for someone that wants to set up a fixed site?
Right.
It took him 15 minutes to figure out where it was. Yeah, and it turns out it's in the CBO's dashboard.
That's correct.
And the CBOs are the only ones that can apply for a fixed site.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's what he told me. He couldn't find it anywhere else.
Jimmy, Dizzy Dean, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I can confirm that the fixed site application is on the CBO dashboard. Absolutely true. And this is where the FAA has told us again, no, you must be confused. Anybody can apply for a fixed site. Now, just for folks listening, a fixed site is separate and different from a FRIA.
Correct.
A fixed site is the FAA's approval that you can fly at a location that is in controlled airspace. And so
Correct.
if you're in class B, C, D, some E, not A, those are controlled airspace that we can fly UAVs in. Then you want to get the approval to fly in that space. Then that can get you fixed site approval. That's instead of getting Lance approval. I mean, that's what that's the benefit.
Correct.
Do you have to have remote ID in a fixed space?
What do you think, Itchy?
I guess it would be over 249 grams. You still have to have remote ID, right?
Check. Correct.
Unless.
See, I'm learning stuff.
Okay, but there is an unless, right? Unless you have a FRIA that is overlaid on that.
That's right. Right. A FRIA can you can have an overlap. Yeah. And then of course
a FRIA can be a fixed space.
A fixed site can also be a FRIA.
In a FRIA.
Correct. Okay. But they are two different things. You have to apply for both. You don't get one if you apply for the other.
Right.
They are totally separate.
And since we're talking about FPV, we're keenly interested in rapid stand-up of a FRIA to support a race. And so if you think about it, going to set up a race. I got agreement from the people who own the property. We're all set. And we're going to fly in this tiny, tiny little volume, right? It's a couple hundred feet by a couple hundred feet by 30 or 50 feet high. Not 400, not 500, not 1,000 feet, maybe 50, 60 feet high. Mm-hmm. What's the problem? And so we've been struggling on that one, but we will continue to push it. So there is the FAA's answer to that is, well, we gave you the FRIA event. And so as you go through the document, you say, oh, so 90 days, huh?
Yeah, 3 months in advance. It's like, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
So we feel a nominal intelligent time turnaround would be 2 weeks. So
yeah. Now I agree with the 90 days.
Most people who fly a race 2 weeks, they know they're going to fly in 2 weeks.
But now I agree with the 90-day thing. If you're talking about an organization like MultiGP, where they have certain fixed events around the country that happen on specific dates that are coming up a year in advance,
without a doubt.
And I have no problem with that. But for what we're talking about, 90 days.
You got five or six individuals are going to get together and fly in a tiny volumetric space. One of the suggestions I saw, which I thought was brilliant, and we want to have this discussion with the FAA, is a great safety mitigation would be bring along a single broadcast module. So a broadcast module transmission radius or dome would be plenty enough to cover a race. So, what's the issue? In addition, if you use Before You Fly or Aloft, which, by the way, we are friends with Aloft, we're fans of Aloft. If you're recreational, you can use Aloft for free. Great company, great product. We do not get any cash back from the Aloft company. We work with them. But the point is that if you can set up a race, you can bring along a broadcast module. You can also use one of the functions where I was headed was called Notify and Fly. And so it's like, we're going to be at this location. We're going to be flying in this volumetric shape, this parallel pipette that's tiny, and we're going to be doing it for 2 hours on Saturday. That's
wasn't it you and Josh that were talking about that, about how when you do Lance, it's like 1 mile square at the moment, and you're trying to break it down smaller?
Oh, that's
you guys talking about that?
Well, I did mention it, but it was that's a UAS facility map. And so if you do a search on UAS facility map and you live around an airport, the grid squares on around an airport used to be about a mile. It's 1 degree by 1 degree, so it's about a mile square. back in one of the activities that we were working on a drone advisory committee tasking group, and we got the recommendation to the FAA, and they agreed to have those quarters. So where we have one square, there are now four, which we all know about pixels and tessellation and anti-aliasing. So smaller squares can make a better description of a circle. So that gives us a better area to fly. In addition, there were other good things that happened in that work, and they went back and redid a lot of the UAS facility maps so that we can fly very close to next to a runway, because no aircraft's supposed to be next to a runway. They're supposed to be flying at the edges or ends of the runway onto. So there were some great participation and collaboration. We had NACTA, the air traffic controller union. We had representation from airports of Dallas, Fort Worth, Fairbanks, LAX, and DFW, as well as Atlanta on that project. And so people who really knew their stuff, as well as Reno, they were the Reno airport. So a lot of good work that we got done there.
Matter of fact, Mikey, if you want, you can bring up my screen that I'm sharing.
Yep.
I've got one of the UAS data maps up that kind of shows that.
Okay, let me pull that up.
There you go. That's what it looks like.
This is a good example because it maps like this and sectionals and this is one. So if we're doing this on a serious basis, or we live in a controlled airspace, it behooves us as recreational operators or Part 107 pilots to know what airspace do I live in, what airspace do I fly in, and just searching on UAS facility maps, you'll know right away. Oh, boy, I live right there in the middle of that green block. Well, what's the max altitude I can fly?
That's right.
And that'll you just read it right off that table.
And then one other thing these maps also give at the moment is the little blue circles, which are the fixed sites that are already approved by the FAA.
Right.
So, and I'll zoom in on this one. I know this area exceptionally well. I lived down in this area most of my life. This is the San Gabriel Valley RC Club, which is at Whittier Narrows, as well as the Speed Flyers, which is all U control, and then the other speed guys that do all kinds of other crazy stuff down there on the other side. But they have an actual runway, taxiway, the whole shoot match down here. So what surprised me when I saw this was where the circle is. It's straddling the road.
Maddie.
Yeah.
Where the actual flying site is right there. That's the runway. And it's not even in the circle. Go figure.
Right.
So I just thought I would show that because it goes back to the fixed sites and, the maps that you guys were talking about and had mentioned about getting them to square down smaller to make it easier for us to figure out, where we can
So
fly.
those circles, would they be the CBOs?
No, they are the fixed sites.
Okay.
And the CBO,
because this particular area,
a CBO is an organization. It's the FRIA.
Well, I've seen those circles had names in them, like so-and-so flying club.
They are the people that applied for that fixed site.
Right.
So Dave, will they be coming out with a 108?
We think so. One of the things that I did last year is I spent 9 months working on the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee. And it was hundreds of hours that I spent working on this. And so it's about a 300-page document that was produced and with recommendations to the FAA. And so an aviation rulemaking committee inputs to a rulemaking organization. The rulemaking organization, in this case, the FAA rulemaking team, creates a notice for public rulemaking. Then you come up with a rule. So when all of that gets done, we will have rules for Beyond Visual Line of Sight. One of the things that we talked about at length in the BV Laws ARC was a quote 108. And to me, it's eminently practical because what we also pushed for is extended VLOS or extended visual line of sight. So I can do a little more. So we all know here that it's not appropriate to fly a bando if I can't see the drone at all times. I can't fly 107 if I'm inspecting a bridge and I momentarily cannot see my drone. That's not allowed. So a lot of us, given the technology, feel that's ridiculous, and that's what a significant part of the
What's that
BVLOS
noise?
work is about.
Is this coming from you, Sammy? That noise? Yeah, it is.
What I do now?
Sounded like you were getting like
a
tornado warning, like there were sounds coming out of you.
There is nothing official behind a 108, but the idea behind it is that it would require a significant more education because it would be the next level of beyond visual line of sight. So I'm flying 100 miles away. Do you think we should have a little more education if we're flying a 200-pound drone 150 miles away? Yeah, good idea. So a lot of common sense behind that one, and we're encouraged. And a good plug for one of the things we're working on right now is the Drone Advisory Committee, and that's where we did the UAS facility maps work, has now changed its name to protect whomever. No, it's changed the name to expand to Advanced Air Mobility, but it's now the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee, and they do tasking groups. And FPVFC has worked on 12 of them now. Tasking group 14 is what can the industry do to accelerate the rules for specific parts of BVLOS rules? And one of the things that we're really hopeful about is that it can be the low altitude recommendations that we put, and that's flying under 107, but flying a little farther away, and also being able to fly behind objects. And
because typically for FPV pilots in general, quote unquote, right? Even if we're flying long range to us is usually no more than a mile or so. Because if something happens, we still got to hike to go get the stupid thing. And most of us are too lazy to hike more than a mile.
Right. And if you look for what's the definition of the maximum distance of beyond visual line of sight, there are two things. One is in about the 2016-2017 timeframe, the FAA sponsored work that stipulated, they think it's about 2.3 miles. Okay, that's interesting. And then everyone here might know that the FAA is working very closely with lots of other civil air authorities around the world. And in the United Kingdom, they just released a new visual line of sight definition that stipulates you must be able to see the orientation and vector of the UAS or UAV.
Oh yeah, that raised a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's an organization that the FAA talks to on a daily basis. So do we think there might be some tightening up of definition of VLOS? Yeah, that's probable.
Yep.
So
Dave, I wanted to share a video because there's a few things that because we're doing a FPV Palooza, Quad Mafia FPV Palooza, and we already went through the location. We talked to the guys; they were cool with it, and then there was some other issues. Troy from Big Water UAV has mentioned it to me, so I want to share this video. And if anybody has any insight on it, like if you have any answers for us on how to get this going, let us know. But here, I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to play this. Let me remove that real quick. Let me remove yours. You're not going to use yours no more, right, Doc? Your thing?
No, I can just paste the links in the chat for the two other things.
All right. Okay, I'll remove your thing then real quick, and if you want to add it again, we'll put it up.
Yep, no problem.
All right, so
here, I'll click off it. You got it? There we go.
Hold on. You got it. All right, let me remove it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so let's play this real quick, and all right, let's play it real quick.
This is Troy with Big Water UAV Solutions, and I needed to give you an update on the Quad Mafia FPV Palooza that may or may not take place here in Eagle River, Wisconsin, August 4th, 5th, and 6th of this year. Having some difficulties procuring insurance, event insurance at a reasonable cost. I have signed the special use permit, and part of that special use permit requires to have $1 million general liability insurance for the event. I thought everything was locked up. I had, prior to signing the special use permit, I did some research, and I found the International Drone Racing Association, which on their website claim that they would offer a drone event insurance for the cost of $350 for up to 7 days, 7-day event. I attempted to call them because I was not going to purchase that online, and the number was disconnected. So I sent an email and then pursued other avenues. I reached out to a couple of brokers, a couple of agents, I should say, who reached out. I submitted some applications. I received one back so far. I've got 2 more in the pipeline. But this particular one here, a little out of the ballpark, shall we say. $2,857 to insure a FPV drone event. And I specifically, of course, just asked for a drone event. Really doesn't matter whether you're flying FPV or not. So that's way out of the ballpark. That's not going to fly. No pun intended there. I did reach out to MultiGP, and they recommended that I reach out to the AMA. So I reached out to the AMA. The AMA informed me that you need an event manager to organize an event, and then you can get the event insured for $75. Sounds good to me. However, I don't meet the qualifications to be an event manager. You need to be a 1-year member of the AMA, and whoever sponsors that event needs to be present the day of the event. Part of that, they need to ensure that everyone flying is also a AMA member. I am not going to require that for our event. We're not going to require anybody to become an AMA member for that. I did reach out to the local AMA chapter, and they're not interested in sponsoring the event or participating at all in the event, which is not actually surprising, given what I've heard that most of the AMA is just pays lip service to quads and drones. So that is where we are at. I'm waiting on a couple quotes. Obviously, we're going to have to make a decision soon. I'm going to give it no more than 2 more weeks to decide. I'm waiting on another quote. And if anybody out there knows of any other avenues I can pursue to get drone event insurance, I've applied for air event insurance and, air meets, etc. Specifically, we want drone event insurance. Alternatively, we could possibly relocate the event. And unfortunately, up here, that's really not an option just because we don't have any parks with the area that this particular one has for flying. We can make it a private event. However, we can't close off the park to the public. And I think the county would look at that as circumventing the stipulations that they've given forth to hold an event at the park. So this is where we're at. I wanted to get this out and get this on my channel in case I'm not on the Quad Mafia FPV, Quad Mafia channel tonight. And anybody can reach out to either myself through the comments or reach out to Michael at FlyZone Drones with any further assistance maybe that you can give and directing us on who to go to. I mean, there's only about 12 underwriters out there in the entire world that underwrite drone and aerial insurance. And we're running into huge price increases. That's what one of the agents told me, that they've just gone completely bananas and through the roof. Of course, so has everything else. So anyways, I'm going to sign off now. I just want to get this out there. I will keep you posted. Keep the faith. We'll try and work something out. I would hate to have to cancel this event, but if that is indeed what we need to do, I think it's going to be a bigger problem moving forward. I think municipalities and cities and towns are going to start requiring insurance for anybody to be flying out of their parks, launching or landing out of their parks. They're going to require it. And we're going to have to fight that. But obviously, that's another thing. So there we are. Remember, FPV is not a crime. And take care. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
There you go.
So how do you feel about that?
The first is Skywatch.ai is a good company to look at. They offer liability as well as personal, as well as damage. And they've been in business and popular since, I think, 2016. The other is similar events, I would say, are Rotor Riot Rampage and West Coast Throwdown. And I'm sure that the Rotor Riot folks would be happy to share what they do for Rampage down in South Carolina. That is a private facility. It is not a public facility, but they may have a similar event. I don't know what the property is out in West Coast Throwdown. I do know that Flight Fest is also private property, and it's also they don't have the same requirement that this county also has. But I would a couple phone calls to folks who are do things like this, as well as take a look at Skywatch.ai, the good firm.
Skywatch.ai. Okay.
It's an insurance company.
Skywatch. Okay, Skywatch. Yeah, so this is crazy. That this is going on right now. But like Troy said, if we have to find a different location, we will. If not, then if we still having trouble, maybe, I don't know. I was telling him maybe we can do it here in Chicago again. But I don't think Maddie will come because I think Maddie will crash again.
Poor Maddie.
Maddie in Chicago, don't mix. I don't think. I think it's gonna be what do they call it? A tradition now. It's gonna be a tradition now for Maddie every time he comes to Chicago.
That's so funny. You just got to make sure he brings one to rack.
You see, Maddie comes back. Yeah, when Maddie comes back to Chicago and Business Quad, I guarantee you he's going to crash it. It's going to break. He's like, that's it. No more Maddie. Chicago. What's up, Virtual Fly? Thanks for coming in, buddy. And I'd like to thank Airframe for popping in, too. Harley of PV's in here. Tammy Jean. Max Air. U.S. Drone. Captain Joe America in here. My cousin Joe Fotoleo. Jonathan Jackson. Real quick, guys. Just real quick. Let me say hi to everybody. Mark R. White is in here. If I missed anybody, let me know. Barkley's in here, 107. And Cryptoman 5000. And we had Eddie Nunez too in here. So yeah. Cool. But yeah, I mean, that's
right.
what we got. So, I mean, Dave, thanks for that, man, for all the info you were giving us too. So what do you got to say, Doc?
Dave, I got one last question for you, because this is about the FRIAs and the fixed sites. The question that I wrote it down so that I could make sure I'd ask it right is, does the FPV Freedom Coalition have any fixed sites and or FRIAs approved under them at this time?
No.
Okay.
And I would be shocked, I tell you, if any CBO did, because the process is not yet set up.
Well, as I understand it, when I talked to the gentleman on the FAA on the phone call, all of those blue circles that are on that map, they are fixed sites that are already approved for AMA only.
I should have stipulated that the FRIA, no FRIA sites have been approved.
FRIA sites. Okay.
This fixed sites being approved for AMA, that's a little troublesome, but
yeah. But
so
bear in mind.
Why do I say it's a little troublesome? Because the FAA said that fixed sites belonging to the or associated with the AMA would have to go back through the process once again, and there are 2,600 of them. So if the FAA is asserting that those approximately 2,600 sites have already been approved, okay, not my circus, not my monkey.
Dizzy Dean, sorry, bro.
One of the things
I understand it at the moment, there are only, let me look it up real quick. Got it right here. Okay. There are only 195 fixed sites approved at the moment.
So they got 2,200 to go.
Yep. And these are all AMA only. That's all that's approved.
Right. That's
nobody else's.
The 2,600 is an AMA number.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that I did want to mention. We're working on a bunch of other things. One of them could be quite important to us. We might be asking for help. And that is, y'all remember what a NPRM is, a Notice for Public Rulemaking.
Oh, yeah.
We got 53,000 people to respond to the remote ID NPRM.
Yep.
There's another important NPRM that's been published, and it's coming from the FCC. And it only took the FCC 11 years to get this one out the door. So the FCC works a little, not quite as quick as the FAA. So this one has to do with allocation of protected spectrum for UAS. So this was stipulated numerous times, but the last time mandated by Congress in 2018 in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018, Section 374. I worked on it in Tasking Group 6 to set it to work on a set of recommendations that were all accepted by the FAA. Congress in 2018 mandated that the FAA work with the FCC and the NTIA on allocating protected spectrum. This is important from the perspective of today we operate in Part 107 and on recreational, command and control our aircraft with hobby level unprotected spectrum. So if a phone company is able to convince the FCC that they can auction and purchase that spectrum, we have no protection. This rule, and we stand alone in the world without this type of protection. So this is a rather important NPRM. We will be commenting on it. There are a number of concerns that we have about it. The mandate stipulated C-band and L-band. The NPRM just ignores one of the two bands. In addition, it stipulates that you need a license. We think, but I have to go back and read it more carefully, that that's just for voice in contacting between a UAS pilot and ATC. That's not anything that anybody wants. What we want and what we've asked for is UAS pilot to manned aircraft be able to talk directly over FM frequencies, and the FAA can do that with a stroke of the pen. And shared spectrum, which the NPRM stipulates that why don't we just share? And so we could share between cell phones and UAS, because we can just give up the spectrum when we're flying, right? Just crash the drone and no issue. So obviously my tongue is firmly in my cheek in a bunch of these points, but it's a rather important NPRM. When we have about another 50 days to respond, we'll be putting up comments that we feel are appropriate, and we may ask other folks to comment just like we did on the remote ID NPRM.
Dave, do you have the NPRM number where we can look it up? Because I looked it up, and all I get is FCC starts rulemaking on licensed spectrum.
That's it.
Unmanned aerial system.
That's
That's it?
That's the one.
Okay. And the doc I get is doc-3905 36A1.
Give me a moment.
That's current as of January 4th.
Okay. The docket is 22-323.
Okay, that's
the FCC number is 22-101, and the RM number is 11798.
okay. Yeah, that's a different one than what I got here.
This was released for January 2023.
Yeah, and that's when that other document was put out as well.
Yeah. If you search on the FCC website for FCC starts allocation of UAS spectrum, you'll pop up with this NPRM.
Let's see. Yeah, because what I typed in was FCC NPRM UAS.
Yep, that should work.
Okay, let's see.
All right, we're also working on looking at the FAA SMS is a document that's out for comments. There's also another tasking group out of the AAAC on drone handbooks that we're working on. We're also members of the drone safety team. We just finished up I led a task force on the UAS ASRS, more abbreviations for us, but the UAS Aviation Safety Reporting System. And we will be at Flight Fest in June, and we may be at
awesome.
Exponential and maybe at Rampage. We'll see.
And maybe at Quad Mafia Fpv Palooza.
And here we go.
Mikey, Wisconsin in August, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Mikey, if you want to share my screen real quick, is that the correct PDF there, Dave?
Yeah, that's it. You're looking at, that's the memo. So you have to grab the associated document, which is the NPRM.
Okay.
The NPRM is 114 pages.
Okay,
which is light. That's light for an NPRM.
So they're labeling this. Basically, it's this. Here's what they're labeling it.
That's correct.
Okay, let me see if I can dig that up. Okay, NPRM.
So what else are we working on?
Let's see if that brings it up. Okay, I got it on Modac. Let's see if that's it, or it leads me to it. No, that's just an article. Okay, because this is it comes right back up to that.
Yeah, it is now in the Federal Register. So if you want to go there, you can go there as well. But there's a link to the document from the page you're looking at right now.
Okay.
Do you have any insurance do you have to have any insurance if you fly on private property? If it's your private property, no. But if it's someone else's, then yes. Mm-hmm. And this is why, again, we do not. We have no relationship with Skywatch AI. We just researched all of the various insurance companies, and it's a clever company, and you can get insurance by the hour, and you can get hull insurance, so similar to a boat. You can it's damage insurance, or you can get personal or liability.
Liability, yeah.
There we go, David. Is this the PDF?
Yes, sir. It is.
There it is. Okay, so I'll get a link to that for everyone. So,
and again, it's important.
That's on this page right here.
If someone has a good idea, don't copy and paste. That's a waste of your time, because NPRMs operate under the rules of they accept or count only unique comments. This is unlike a congressional memo. That copy and paste is a good thing because they just check how many comments plus or pro or con. And in addition, we plead with everyone to please be professional, polite, and productive. Because if we just say this sucks and the heck with you guys, it's really not advantageous. I mean, it might make you feel good for a minute, but it doesn't help.
Yeah, read the document first, guys. Be absolutely certain what you are reading,
right?
Before you
right.
comment.
And this is where I spent 2 months working with some really wonderful people who live in this space of radio frequency regulations, which is arcane. I mean, if we thought what we're doing in aviation is arcane stuff, this is the next level. And that's what we're going through over the next couple of days is going through this document, and we will put out, this is our view and understanding and set of comments, and we welcome and that's always on. There is no paywall with FPVFC. This is out there, and it'll be on our website. And we encourage people to read what we have, make up. And if you want to comment, then please, you have to put in your own words. Don't just copy what we've written.
And just to go back to something you'd mentioned about talking about them making it to where we could communicate with aviation, that does not happen on FM. Just so everybody understands, all of aviation radios, aircraft to aircraft, aircraft to ground, are AM.
Yeah.
Every last one of them. It is just crazy.
And it is illegal today for us to pick up a handheld and talk to an aircraft. So if someone says, while we're flying in we're doing a model air show at an air and an airfield, why don't we just talk to those pilots? You can't. And that's what we've recommended back in the tasking group. As I said, this NPRM talks about talking to air traffic control, which nobody wants.
Nope.
All right.
Air traffic ATC doesn't want it. UAS pilots don't want it. Crewed aircraft don't want us bothering ATC. Not with voice.
So that would be kind of like breaking into a first responder radio and talking to those guys.
As far as they are concerned, yes.
That's exactly right, Itchy. Exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, I have a little advantage. I am a Part 61 pilot. I am building an aircraft. I have all the radios to do all of that.
Yep.
But, like you pointed out, to communicate with the aircraft, if it's not near the airport, then that's not wise because they don't need that.
Yeah, you're not going to get on there and just like jibber jabber because.
Well, no, it's even if let's say if you're at a field where you're going to fly with a dozen guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to fly up to 400 feet, but there are other aircraft full size flying near the area. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't get on an aircraft radio and just put a general call out and just say, hey, UAV operations in this vicinity.
Right. And so this is one of the things that we recommended in the BV Loss ARC, which is if you're flying a manned aircraft and you're flying under 400 feet, then why not insist that you have ADSB out? That is a squawking out of your aircraft that says, this is who I am and this is where I'm headed. And that's useful because that has an approximate range of 25 miles. And so if I'm flying UAS on the ground and there's a manned aircraft coming into my airspace, that's pretty useful information to know. And those of you who use DJI know that they've put ADSB receivers on their drones right now. That we view that as a good thing. We recommended it to the FAA to be part of extended visual line of sight.
Yeah.
I
think the ADSB is a wise thing for extended visual line of sight. Yeah.
So why couldn't you have
beyond?
Why couldn't you have an ADSB transmitter on your quad that lets other aircraft in the area know that you're in a certain spot?
For starters, it's the physical size of the hardware right now, and the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking like $30, $40, $50, even $100 unit. We're talking $800, $1,500, $2,500 units just to do ADSB.
Okay.
Right, and that's TSO technology, and so there were a whole bunch of reasons. And if you recall, in the remote ID rule back in 2021, the FAA stipulated that ADSB will not be used for UAS.
Correct.
Okay.
And that, I'm assuming that's probably part of the reason.
Yeah, they talk about spectrum saturation, but we struggle with that.
Well, And another question that I had asked Doc was, if you're flying an FPV and you're staying below, say, the highest building or below the highest tree line.
Right. We call this shielded operations. And shielded
Yeah,
operations
so
in the same tasking group that we got agreement on the reducing the square size, we also
Mhm.
put in a recommendation for the FAA to consider shielded operations. They have. There is a there was a let of a grant of $232,000 out to $232,000 out to universities to investigate the veracity of shielded operations. In addition, shielded operations is part of the BV loss ARC recommendations. In addition, the law enforcement side of the FAA, the group that works with the LEAP people, are working on a masking, which is a type of shielded operations. And I should mention that in a Alien Drones interview of Kevin Morris from the FAA, Kevin said, not going to happen with respect to shielded operations. And with respect, we feel that he's incorrect on that assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because there's going to be no manned aircraft in that shielded operations unless we've had a
couple of fantastic discussions with representatives from Helicopter Association International, and their point was, well, they absolutely fly under 400 feet all the time.
Mhm.
And this is so we've got 16,000 helicopters in the United States. That's the total. And a lot of them are putting themselves in harm's way by flying under 400 feet all the time. So then our discussion was, okay, well, at what lateral distance from an obstruction? Because certainly they're not going to be flying 50 feet next to a building or a tree or a hill or a cliff, or certainly not 100 feet. So now, now we've agreed on the profession. We're just arguing price. And so we've had some very constructive discussions with the HAI organization, and these are smart, wonderful pilots that are risking lives every day. So a great group, and it's a discussion that we've been active with in the BV Lost Ark and other discussions.
Okay,
sounds like you guys have been doing pretty good work on all that. That's excellent. Because shielded operations would fix a lot of these issues.
What I'm saying, with FPV, a lot of FPV guys fly inside parking garages.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no
in and around, right.
And as soon as you go around a beam, you're violating a BV loss rule.
BV
so
OS,
that's what we want about EBV or EV loss, is that momentarily being able to be out of visual line of sight is not an issue.
Right.
Yeah. We covered a whole lot of good stuff here,
yes,
Dave.
we did. Great stuff. Very informative.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave, you're the man. I love you, Dave.
FPVFC.org.
I appreciate you putting up with me.
Yep.
Itchy, it was a pleasure.
Yep. And guys,
Itchy, we just take account you're in California, okay?
I feel, I feel like I was back home in New York. I mean, it's
So guys, I have everything that you need down in the link. In the description below of this video, and then I'll have Dave's all his info on all his platforms, and like Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. So I'll have Dave's stuff, his info in there. If you guys need to talk to Dave, ask him questions, I'm sure he'll be able to help you guys out. And then I have Doc's and Sammy's down there. I'll put them right after the
Mikey,
show.
what I'll do is you've got a copy of what I sent you with all the stuff, right?
Yes, I do.
Put all those links into the description, so that way everybody can click on them, after the fact. Because I put them in the chat, but you know how the chat sometimes can go crazy on these things.
And if you're going to respond to an NPRM, polite, professional, productive, please.
After you read the document.
It's always a good, even if it is 114 pages.
Well, would it help to have suggestions?
That's what we'll be writing. So over the next couple of days on the if maybe this week, it's going to be a little busy, but on the FPVFC website, we will have this is our understanding of what this NPRM is, and here's where we think it's great. One of the things that's fantastic, finally after 11 years we might get protected spectrum. That's fantastic. And then, okay, we have issues, right? We don't like having to get a license. We're nervous that one of the bands is not even mentioned. And sharing, we really do not like sharing. So those are some of the suggestions that are highly probable that will come out.
Okay. Good info, man. Absolutely great info. What did Doc
I have one last question. When are we going to learn about the new frame?
He's so into that frame.
Okay,
he wants that frame now.
It's a nice soon. I'm hopeful. It's a
right.
so I brought this along because
a
number of guys say, "Wow, Messina, you work on this regulation stuff. You've never flown anything." I've been an RC modeler for 50 years, and I've been flying quads for FPV
I think it was me
for 7 years. And this RC plane I flew, we helped design, and it flies from about 5 miles an hour to about 99 miles an hour.
I have to say, Dave, I appreciate you putting up with me, and it was good to meet you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. We all put up with Sammy.
And yeah, we do. we take him with a grain of salt occasionally.
We love Sammy though. Love Sammy. We love Sammy.
But hey, Dave, just to kind of give you an idea, I have been flying RC aircraft, helicopters, and all that since the late 70s.
Yeah.
And I got to fly what we call FPV now. I got to do that in 1985 with John Cocconi.
Cool.
He had an airplane that was set up with an LCD screen, transmit, receive, the whole thing, man. And mind you, and this is what most everybody forgets, he didn't go down to Amazon and order the transmitters and receivers and all that. He hand built those stupid things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The advances in the technology have been pretty cool. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, this is this has an HD0 graphics VTX as V2.
Take a photo, Mikey.
It's
we can't be talking about their frame. Remember, Sammy? Can't be talking about it. He's an NDA on that, all right?
I have an idea.
That's all right. My Excalibur is still some of the uniquest one out there. So,
yeah, it's good stuff. Flying and some of the things that I don't know if you guys have come across it, but we have in the work that we've done, we've come across sufferers of PTSD as well as chronic pain have been able to use FPV as one of the few things that attenuates their symptoms as well as their anxiety or pain. And to me, that's a wonderful thing if we can help people and if they can easily fly FPV to make their lives better. That's a real plus, and it's been a privilege getting to meet some of these folks.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep. So yeah, guys, that should do it. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we end it?
No, Dave covered everything really well. I mean,
yes, he did
exceptionally well. So, I mean, if anybody's got any questions on that stuff, I think he's pretty well answered them, sufficiently to where we all know what to do with what we got at the moment.
And I'm glad you came on here, Dave. I'm glad because I learned.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Dave.
If anyone knows of other folks in the United States working on UAS regulations, let us know because we'd love to work with them. From what we can tell, we're the only group working with the FAA on regular basis, involved on these task forces, sitting in meetings, taking notes. And we work a lot on Part 107 issues, just to earn our credibility, so that we'll be listened to when we bring up something on recreational. But
are you guys working at all with the group from Race Day Quads? I know they had a big lawsuit going on with the FAA and all that stuff.
They did. We know Tyler. We've worked with them. We've spoken with them. We were not part of that lawsuit. Okay. We felt part of our philosophy has been to be collaborative with the FAA, right? So we've sat on all of the 12 of these tasking groups. We're on the DST, which is an FAA industry organization. So we felt it would be rather duplicitous to take part in a lawsuit against the FAA, and then out of the other side of our mouth be working in a collaborative way to try to get things done. So we feel there's
pick
room.
Your battle.
That we feel
I
there's
just
room
wondered
for
if they were
both.
working with you guys at all.
We absolutely, what we do is we have a what I would consider a great relationship with all of the larger retailers that we know.
Yeah.
And when we hear information that's of interest to them, we get it out to the retailers as a special relationship.
Yeah.
And that absolutely includes race day quads.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, Dave, let me ask you a final question here, and this is just straight speculation, okay? If when September 16th comes around, and for the most part, these remote ID modules are not available in any kind of quantity that we can practically get, right? How do you think the FAA is going to respond to us?
So it's a great question, but you've caveated the question by stipulating that you don't think there'll be a sufficient volume of remote ID broadcast modules. I don't. And I disagree. I think there will be an adequate supply. So do I think the ramp up or the uptake, let's say the supply is more than enough modules that people could purchase them, will they buy them? We think not for a significant period of time. We think the ramp is going to be quite slow for people to say, all right, okay. Because it, like you, Doc, if you have a recreational infraction, you could lose your private pilot's license. So I'd bet more than a couple adult beverages that you're probably going to comply with all of the recreational regulations. I mean, it's common sense.
Going to have to.
Exactly. So those people who have a lot at stake will comply quickly. What will the FAA do to if we're met with broad and wide-scale non-compliance? I think they may, just from observing the behavior, we may see some scapegoating behavior. So they'll pick a couple of egregious violations to make very public. They also have 25 individuals who are on their LEAP team, the Law Enforcement Assistance Program. So the FAA works every day, and this is a good thing, to educate and tell law enforcement across the country, this is what you can ask for. You can ask for a registration, and you can ask for either trust or the Part 107 cert, and that's about it. And it's and then you contact us if there's if you feel there's a violation of airspace. Contact the FAA. That not FPVFC. Contact the FAA. So this is the FAA talking to LEAP. So I would suggest that in that situation we will see more active enforcement activities happening, and we will also see selection of very highly visible ones.
Yep.
How
long do you believe, in your opinion, that it will take before the community as a whole is fairly well compliant?
I think Part 107 is going to go first. They'll be compliant first. And then I think, of course, videographers with recreational will become compliant quickly because, as the product cycle turns over, they'll be purchasing product that's automatically standard remote ID.
Correct.
So a year-ish, and you'll see a significant percentage of that. And then the last to move over are the hobbyists flying, recreational operators flying FPV and building all of their own. And I think a couple of years, it would be my bet. Okay. Until we see a moderate percentage of FPV using remote ID, and so it will be how expensive are the modules and how heavy
going
are
to be
they?
the biggest part. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're real heavy, and they're not going to be heavy. So if you were flying 5-inch, it's not an issue. If you're flying just above 250 grams, then and this is why I said I'm so excited about a great idea to have a single broadcast module at a race, because the racers, of course, as you guys know, they're worried about every gram that gets added to their craft. So I think that's they should be encouraged,
that could even play into just not even races, but larger events. Like I've attended a few very nice events where I've had to go out to California, for a specific function of my own. And I've made plans weeks and weeks in advance to meet up with dozens of guys at a single location.
Right.
And if we were able to say, okay, we already have this plan, we know where we're going to do it, all we need to do is put one module up and we're all good, because we're all going to be in that one location.
Right. And you're not going to be flying.
That would be great.
You're not long range, flight. No. You're not flying up to 400 feet. It's typically, we fly relatively low altitude.
Yeah, we're usually 50 to 100 feet of any of the obstacles, because there's no point in flying much above that.
Exactly.
Usually.
I just want to go back real quick to clarify something that was said. If you're a manned, you have a pilot license for a manned aircraft.
Yep. Right, like a Part 61.
If you don't comply with the UAS regulations,
you risk the FAA pulling your Part 61 cert. That's exactly
right. If they wanted to be very, very nasty, not only can they pull your Part 107, but they can pull your Part 61 also.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
They have that authority.
Or 121 or 135.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So you're an airline pilot, and we've had a couple of airline pilots say, I can't risk my livelihood. This sport has been fun, but I'm gone. I can't risk it. And you got to respect that.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough right there.
Yeah. And so this is, when people say, well, the heck with it, why do you guys bother? We're trying to help and make it as easy as possible for folks to comply. So if you want to comply, we really want to help. And if if someone says, well, I want to argue with you, the validity and the constitutionality of remote ID, our response is, no, let's not, that's been,
we can't fix that at the moment.
Yeah, we really can't. And we know, look at the history of the FAA. The FAA does not, historically alter or back down from rules once published.
It's pretty rare. So it's pretty rare. So, well, that pretty well answered that answered my good question on that. So, how you felt on all that. That's good, because you've got a much bigger finger on the pulse as far as a feel for what's going on. So,
yeah, I've also done a lot of product forecasting in my career, and I've done a fair amount. I put together the forecast on the K through 12 DAC tasking group that's been used and quoted in a number of places. So I'm very interested in what are the projections and what do we think is the uptake, not only of RID, but how do we get more kids involved? How do we get girls involved in FPV? How do we grow the FPV hobby and make it easier for people to fly and to have fun? Because I think it's really cool.
Yep, that's what we want.
Because honestly, I think the FRIA thing is the thing that will make it easiest.
Absolutely.
So that way we can have areas for them to actually do it and not have to worry about all this other stuff.
Yeah, and you've heard Josh Bixler, the president of Flight Test. He's got a great, his
STEM program's pretty impressive,
and he views it as FRIA first. And so let's see if we can help you get a FRIA.
Yep.
And if we can't, then we're going to have to resort to broadcast module. So this is not us pushing all the wonders of broadcast modules.
Yeah.
It's FRIA first. Can we work that? And then if not, then we'll do a broadcast module, because as I said at the start of this, the objective is we want folks to be able to fly where and how they're flying tomorrow, just like they did yesterday.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah. I hate it just as much as everyone else. I hate it just as much as everyone else hates it, but it is what it is. And Dave's fighting for us, so we appreciate that.
Not a doubt. Absolutely, David. Like I said, when I saw you and Josh on with Joshua Bardwell, it was like, oh, we got to talk to you, about all this, because and from a more of our standpoint, actual practical, we're flyers,
Right.
We're not reviewers, we're not in that side of the space so much,
Right.
We're out there just building our own stuff and flying and having a good time. So.
Yeah. I think Blunty's a part of the Freedom Coalition, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a member.
Yeah. I thought so too.
It's,
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Blunty, Josh Cook, Dan Oakes, and Alex Suarez.
Yeah.
We'll pass it along to all of them. Thank you
Good
for what
guys.
you guys have done so far.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I will absolutely pass it along.
So yeah, that should do it, guys, ladies and gentlemen.
That calls it.
That calls the show right there.
Good stream.
I'll keep you guys posted on the Quad Mafia FPV Palooza of this year. So Dave, thanks for that. Skywatch AI, right?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yep.
So yeah, I just wanted to put that video out because just let everyone know that it's getting worse and worse. So it's something we got to do. We got to fix this. So yeah, so that should do it, guys. Sergio couldn't do much talking. He's watching his son.
Yeah.
But we appreciate him as always for what he does. And
Sergio, take care of that little boy.
And Chris, Itchy Sack.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Itchy Sack, all the way for itching your sack every day, every hour. We appreciate you. We love you, bro.
It's a California thing, Mikey.
Right.
There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Dave, thank you once again. Much love.
You bet.
And
thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back.